Hello everybody and welcome back to Ant Holleufer. Today we are doing a little recap of the Lasius Niger experiment, and I just want to talk a little bit about why I've done this experiment from start to finish and what has happened during the experiment. So when I started this experiment, I was googling on YouTube what happens if you put two Lasius Niger queens together. So if you don't know the species Lasius Niger, it is a non-polygynous species. I think that's how you say it. It means that two queens can't live together, and that's just a fact. But when I went to YouTube and googled that, I never really found any videos. I just found people with 14 Lasius Niger queens together with 10 or 5. And I know if you went on to Google and Google it, you will figure it out that they won't live together because they just can't. But I wanted to kind of test it and make one test that shows all in the future that this is how it is. So let me show you. Okay, so sitting at the desk now. So going on to YouTube, we can first of all see my music taste, I guess. But what we want to see is this I search right here. So, 2 Lasius Niger queens. And then we hit enter. This right here. My video on top of everything. That's what I wanted. Because every single person that they will say two Lasius Niger queens together will then see this. And that is what I wanted with this experiment. Episode number 1. In episode 1, it was mostly just an introduction to all 6 colonies, so there wasn't really much information. But when I published this first episode, I got a lot of negative comments. I had kind of seen that coming, but still, reading all of those negative comments made me feel a little bit sad that I had started the experiment. But then again, the reason that I started this experiment was so no one else started this experiment. So although I felt a bit sad reading the comments, I knew that if I made a video that would go kind of viral, then hopefully I would stop anyone else doing this in the future. Episode number 2. So in the second episode, we still had 12 alive queens, which was of course a very good start, because in my eyes I had no idea when the queens would start killing each other or whatever would happen. But we had all 12 queens alive and all 12 queens seemingly healthy. Looking around the different colonies, we could also see that we had a lot of eggs, and actually every single test tube had eggs inside, so all 6 colonies had laid some eggs, which was just perfect for me because I was really scared that they would kill each other, but they hadn't. Though there was a little bit of miscoloration on 2 of the cotton balls and 2 of the test tubes. It was this kind of yellow color, and talking with people down in the comments, they were pretty sure that it can very well be blood, but it can very well also be something that isn't ant blood. I still think it's some kind of ant blood, though I'm not sure. So yeah, 12 live queens, but seemingly we've had some fighting in the background. Episode number 3. So in episode 3, 1A looks fine. It looks like we are about to get some workers, but on the other hand, 1B doesn't look fine at all. 2A did have a few problems between episode 2 and 3, and therefore I kind of miscounted them out of the experiment because I had to rush move them, and for some reason they moved 2 of their eggs and nothing else, so they kind of restarted all the way back to episode 1. So 2A is kind of out of the experiment at this time. But looking at 2B, we had our first workers, and in general 2B just looks very well because there's just so much brood, so many cocoons, and hopefully a big explosion very soon. I decided I would give them a little bit of food, which didn't turn out that well, so I'm just gonna skip that. And 3A also had their first workers. I was trying to move 3A into a new test tube because the old test tube was getting kind of moldy, but they didn't seem like they wanted to move, so for now they are still in their original test tube. And lastly, we had 3B, which had also kind of gotten a restart. Not that I have done anything. It seemed like the colony had eaten their eggs or something, because it seemed like the colony had totally restarted. Episode number 4. So coming into episode number 4, 1A seems to be good. It's growing a little bit slower than I expected. I'm not quite sure if there's any reason to. At least, yeah, they're just a bit slow growing. Over to 1B, it doesn't look good at all. Because not only have nothing happened, she had laid a lot of eggs, but all of these eggs had seemingly rotted or gotten a bit moldy, and it just seems like the queen couldn't figure out how to be a queen and take care of her eggs. Now, in the video I talked about infertility, though if she was infertile, she'll still get eggs and cocoons and workers. The workers would just be drones, being a male, prince, and so, I don't know, she was just sick or something because she couldn't get her first set of workers, and therefore she's now out of the experiment. And you can just see here, it's always a good idea to get multiple queens, because you never know when you get a 1B colony that just doesn't work. So always get multiple queens and sort them out later. Going over to 2A, they looks fine. They're just still a lot behind comparison to the rest of the experiment after that initial rush move thing. But I mean, there isn't really much to say. So going over to 2B, and they have just exploded. They have so many workers, and just this explosion we were waiting for has happened. So I tried feeding them again, but once again they weren't that hungry. I don't know if it's just because I gave them too much food, or I don't know what's wrong, but they're still not that hungry. But they have really just exploded, and they looks to be having a great time. Over to 3A, and they're right behind 2B. In my eyes, they're a little bit behind, but they have 3 queens, so they should catch up fairly quickly, but they are also just exploding in numbers. And just in general, this whole experiment, except for this first queen that we just kicked out because she was sick or something, all 12 queens, or now all 11 queens, are still alive. And I remember when I recorded this episode, I was so scared that every time that a new step in their journey happened, that they would start killing each other, so I very quickly tried to make these videos and publish them as the things happened. So I was very scared that one of the queens might kill each other or something might have happened. But for now, nothing has happened. So going over to 3B, it still doesn't look good at all. Only a few eggs and I think 1 or 2 larvae. So in episode 4, I initially said that this would be the last episode, though I gave them episode 5 as well, because I'm that kind of a man. But I'm pretty sure that there's something wrong, like 1B. They kill each other's eggs or something, I'm not quite sure. But I think it has something to do with there's 3 queens. Episode number 5. So in the last episode, before you are all catched up, we go over to episode 5, and 1A once again looks good. There isn't really much to say. It's a 1 queen colony, a bit slow still. But going over to 2A, we have a dead queen. Now, when I initially saw this, I wasn't really sure what has happened, because she didn't look like she had been murdered. It just looked like natural reasons. Like, I don't know. When I saw it, I just thought that it looked very weird because she was kind of brownish. But in other ways, she looked kind of sucked out. I had a few people in the comments saying that colonies might just stop feeding the secondary queen, and therefore the secondary queen will starve to death. And if she hadn't died of natural reasons, that's definitely how she had died. Over to 2B, we once again have an amazing colony to look at. They're just so far ahead in comparison to the other colonies. But once again, we have a dead queen. And this time, she looks like she has been murdered, with her head chopped off. And I'm pretty sure that this queen was killed. Now, once again, down in the comments, there were a bit of discussion between how she had died. Maybe she had been killed by workers. Or another theory is that she has been starved and therefore gotten very weak, and a worker tried to move her, and while the worker tried to move the starving queen, the worker decapitated the queen. So I don't quite know what has happened, but the conclusion is that we lost 2 queens in 2 colonies in 1 episode. So not that good. But else, 2B looks once again very far ahead. Some might even say it looks like a 1 queen colony that has been brood boosted. over to 3A, we do have all 3 queens alive, and it just looks so amazing. So I'm really expecting 3A to explode numbers and just completely overtake 2B if all 3 queens keeps being alive. If we look at all 3 queens, it looks like a 3rd queen is always being pushed away. Now I'm not sure if it's the same queen or if it's just one of the queens. I'm not sure how I should tackle this, because in my eyes I think it's the same queen that gets pushed away, and I think that's the queen that's maybe about to die, but only time will tell. Else the colony just looks so amazing and is ready for hibernation. Lastly, we have 3B, and as I said in episode 4 as well, nothing to say really. I'll put 3B in hibernation, but yeah, I think they're out of the experiment as well. So in general, episode 5 is the last episode before hibernation, and you as a viewer have now been caught up to what has happened during the Lasius Niger experiment. Of course, if you want to see a more detailed video, watch the different episodes, there will be a link in the description for a playlist, and then you can watch all the episodes as you please. So yeah guys, that has been it for this little recap video of the Lasius Niger experiment. Right now they are all in hibernation, so now you're all caught up to when episode 6 will eventually be released. Hopefully in March, April, when they are out of hibernation. Or maybe I'll wait a little bit because when they are out of hibernation, I don't think there's any difference. At least I'll do an old colony update when hibernation ends, and then I'll do a Lasius Niger episode a bit later. So right now 2 of the colonies are getting ready to move into a founding nest, and I think that is some of the first thing I'll do when they are out of hibernation and they get the next set of workers, because then I think they are ready for a founding nest. And with that being said, that has been it for this video. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Bye!